Relief Factor is the daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by a team of doctors, it uses a special formula of 4 natural ingredients. Relief Factor doesn't just mask the pain, it helps reduce or eliminate it. In fact, the longer you take Relief Factor, the more effective it is to get your days going without any pain. See if we can get you out of pain by taking their 3-week quick start. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Simply call 800-4-RELIEF. 800, the number 4-RELIEF. Wherever you're having pain, neck, shoulders, hips, knees, don't let it keep you from living the life you want to live. Make Relief Factor part of your daily routine. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800, the number 4-RELIEF.
An appeals court is allowing President Trump to keep control over California's National Guard troops until a hearing next week. Here's White House correspondent Greg Clugston.
On Thursday, a federal judge ruled that the president illegally deployed the National Guard to help with L.A. protests and must return control of the troops to California's governor. But hours later, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals temporarily blocked that judge's order. The court said it would hold a hearing on the matter on Tuesday. The order applied only to the National Guard troops and not Marines who were also deployed to Los Angeles. Greg Clugston, the White House.
That Air India passenger plane heading to London carrying 242 people went down this week. And now there's an investigation underway into exactly what went wrong. Numerous news reports have suggested it may have been a simple case of pilot error. Of course, the NTSB investigation is also going to reveal its findings, but that will take some time. More from townhall.com. California Democrat Senator Alex Padilla was briefly detained for disrupting a Los Angeles news briefing by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
Senator Padilla was physically confronted by law enforcement, forced out of the room where Noem held her press conference, and handcuffed on the floor. Padilla held his own press briefing in Los Angeles after being allowed to speak with the secretary at the end of hers.
At one point, I had a question, and so I began to ask a question.
Speaker Mike Johnston told reporters at the Capitol in Washington that Padilla's conduct was unbecoming of a senator.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate.
Padilla's fellow Democrats responded with shock and dismay as they left the Capitol after taking the week's final votes Thursday. Bernie Bennett reporting.
About 200 Marines moved into Los Angeles and will be protecting federal property. Personnel, the commander in charge, says that they will remain in place for now. The Marines will take over operations in downtown Los Angeles. More on these stories from townhall.com.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. That's 800-760-1845.
It's time to wake up and get on the rise with all things Chicago sports. And your host, Mike Napoletano.
I'm Italian. I get yelled at all the time. This is normal for me. Are you kidding me?
I love it.
The Italians, we get really high, we get really emotional, and then we bring it right back down. And I'm just in the right back down part right now.
Daulton Cooper.
I think this is the year. He throws for over 4,000 yards. I think Ben Johnston has an understanding of how to take a quarterback and elevate. We've seen what he's done with Jared Goff. Obviously, Jared Goff had gotten to Super Bowl, and he was working with Sean McVay, but.
And Brandon Combs.
To tell me that a guy in Barry Bonds, who in 2004 has more hits and intentional walks than swings and misses. For a guy who watches Luis Robert and cheers him on, you're going to tell me Barry Bonds does not belong in the Hall of Fame? You are out of your mind, sir.
On WRMN 1410 AM, the voice of the Valley.
Good morning and welcome in
everyone to another edition of. Oh,
I was live in studio and on the on the recording. But welcome into another edition of On the Rise here on AM 1410 WRMN. I am Mike Napoletano, one of your hosts here, alongside Daulton Cooper to my left, and then Nick Johnston running the board over to my right here. We will unfortunately not be joined by Brandon Combs this week. He's having some technical difficulties, so he will be back with us next week. But he was a busy man this week. We'll get into that when we get into our White Sox talk. But first and foremost, we have a couple of announcements to make. I do want to lead off with an apology to Jenna Rose and Athletes Unlimited Softball. We did get a chance to interview them last week. It was on the airwaves if you were tuned into AM 1410 on your radio station, but if you were on the YouTube, unfortunately, it did not go out in time. It was posted to our YouTube later, so definitely go back and check that out. It was a wonderful interview with Jenna Rose. Daulton, you and I got a chance to speak with Jenna, and she's super talented, super bright, and she's everywhere, especially these days, covering Athletes Unlimited Softball. That was in town over the weekend. We'll jump into a little bit of that and how the Bandits did. I know Chicagoans are kind of backing the Bandits because it's a rebranding of a former team that used to play over in Rosemont. But, it was a great first weekend for a brand new league. But then also they will be back here in July. So we'll have more coverage then. And it is June, so you might be wondering, why is there a big Bears cutout? And why am I wearing Bears attire here if you're on the YouTube and watching us? That is because AM 1410 WRMN is now partnered with ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears, so you can listen to every Bears game right here on,
bear down, baby.
Bear down. Get the claws out. You can listen to every Bears game right here on AM 1410. We will be covering every single Bears game, both in studio. It sounds like we're going to have a little bit of pregame and postgame shows here, as well as the regular broadcast that you can listen to right over the airwaves. We've got a big cutout of the schedule over here. What stands out to you, Daulton?
This guy doesn't have a number. That's what really stands out to me. Is this fella?
Nice practice squad jersey.
Yeah, I was going to say this fella's not numbered, but
it is. Yeah, it is a practice squad jersey.
No, I mean it's exciting news for the station. Obviously, it's going to give the Fox River Valley and all the folks in it, a chance to call in, discuss. I think it's going to be great for the community as far as the chatter, of course, and obviously, I think it's going to be good just to give that experience to the folks in the valley.
Yeah, boosting the signal, you being a little ways away from the city, so you're actually able to hear the game clearly. So that's nice. And like I said, if it's anything like when the White Sox games are on, there might be just a hair faster. So again, might be the most up-to-date radio station when it comes to White Sox games and Bears games. So we'll see how that goes.
Can confirm that when you're listening to White Sox games on AM 1410 WRMN, it's a little bit faster than the actual broadcast.
It's tad.
Interesting how that works out. But
hopefully we get some playoff games this year too. Maybe in January. The
NFC North is a tough division, and I don't think that it is going to be a cakewalk by any means. But this Bears team, we've talked about it on this show that it can go many different ways, where this is going to be a Bears team that is like 9-8 and pushing for that wild card spot, or, maybe they test a couple things out on offense, and this is that experimental year, so they don't quite get to the playoffs this year, but those seeds are planted, and you can kind of see the flashes of talent and execution, especially, and the offensive side is what gets pushed the most because of Ben Johnson and because of the mentality that he's going to bring and the coaching style that he's going to bring to Chicago. But even on the defensive side of things, I think there will be changes as well that will kind of lead to that. But I don't know. Do you guys see this team as solidifying? And I think when we say playoff spot, we mean wild card. But you think that the Bears have a legitimate, solid shot at doing that compared to some of these teams in the division? I mean, the Lions are still the Lions. The Vikings are going to get a boost with J.J. McCarthy actually getting to play this year and not on injured. Boost. And then also you've got, of course, the Green Bay Packers, who are always lurking. Yeah.
So in that sense, I'm always kind of trying to play the math game. Sometimes you're like, okay, just who are the Bears going to be better in the NFC? And I feel like they are at least top half better in the NFC when it comes to stuff like that. So I believe that I think probably wild card is the maybe the ceiling. Might be the ceiling at this point in time until proven otherwise. Because, of course, saw what happened in Washington. Out of nowhere, they were basically worst to first, just short of that because obviously the Eagles were the number one in the division. But still, it's just one of those things where this young team can put it all together, led at the helm by Ben Johnston. I'll be curious to see what you have to say, Daulton, but I also have another follow-up question after you guys are all set with this one. So.
Well, the big thing to me is, wins and losses, we can sit here and be as optimistic or pessimistic as we want to, but I think the big thing that, at least to me, is that finally the Bears have bought into a culture shift that they have never done in franchise history, dating all the way back to how long the Bears have been around. It's always been about defense and draft linebackers and draft linemen and this and that and the other. And finally, they had the culture shift to where they're going to prioritize offense. They get an offensive head coach. They start spending money in free agency on the offensive line. They start shifting to where the game is going, and that's definitely more toward the offensive side. You just brought up Washington. Washington, the same thing. Their owner gets kicked out. They bring a whole new ownership in. Literally everybody brand spanking new. They win 11 games. Yeah, they win 11 games and go to the NFC Championship game. Like, finally the ownership buys into getting a head coach, letting him run the show. Regardless of that, I think that's what the biggest thing to me is allowing that optimism and allowing Ben Johnston, because obviously he had a finger in the draft too. He was kind of pulling the strings, it seemed to be. Maybe Ryan Poles had a little bit to do with that, but that to me gives me optimism that if they're doing things the right way, which it seems to be they finally are, I think that will lead to success. As far as the division, I think the Lions will take a step back. You lose two coordinators. Obviously, Philly's kind of the outlier because obviously they've lost two coordinators and ended up going to the Super Bowl and winning it. But I think the Lions will take a step back, losing that. And they play, I think, 10 outdoor games this year as opposed to the 3 they played last year. So I think that'll be a big difference. The Vikings, I'm not sure. You just don't know what you're going to get with J.J. McCarthy. Right. Obviously, he was great at Michigan and everything else in between. But things are looking up for the Bears. I could see them making the playoffs. I think just seeing the systematic growth of Caleb Williams is more important than us making the playoffs. Like, seeing him take those steps forward as far as an organization standpoint, I think that's more important than wins and losses. I think that'll give everybody a nice little ease, even if we don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. I know you want to go with your follow-up question, but you mentioned culture. This is the front office and the management team that talked about throwing out history. And then in other press conferences, they've come back and said, well, when you look at the history, it's like, well, didn't you just tell us to throw away the history? And now you're telling us to go back to the history. So whether you want to call it culture or history or just management on the surface, it's always felt like there was this disconnect week to week or month to month or season to season. And this offseason has felt a little different. And it's a little bit more of a, I don't want to call it straight up a breath of fresh air, but you are seeing things change and the mindset and the direction change a little bit.
Yeah, my thing was just going to be watch this in passing on CHSN the other day, and they were ranking just who they thought needs to take the biggest step up in order for the Bears. For the Bears to make the next step, these individual players need to make that next step. Who in your mind needs to make the biggest step? Minus Caleb Williams, obviously. That's probably going to be the easiest. A
specific player or a unit.
Yeah, probably individual player.
Ooh.
Because I got a couple off the dome that I feel like should, not necessarily didn't have the worst year, but just should make the next step, and that would probably be either Roma Dunze or DeAndre Swift.
I see that. I see both of those.
Montez Sweat needs to play better than what he did last year. He was brought in. When he got acquired at the deadline, a year and a half ago, 2 seasons ago, basically, he was a big difference in that defense in that back half of the year. Last year, he was kind of non-existent as far as a pass rush. So I could see him needing to step up and kind of get back to his old self. I don't know about DeAndre, so I don't know. That would be. I understand that, but as far as do we expect a lot
they're
from
going
him?
with him. They're going to go ahead and go with him because Nick Chubb obviously gets signed to the Houston Texans. J.K. Dobbins goes to the Denver Broncos. Those were those were not going to be the superstars that put you over the top, but just another supportive piece.
In the free agency
maybe Cole Kmet. Just because, I just feel like he's not utilized properly. I don't think that's on him necessarily. I think he just needs to be utilized more. He's making 45. He got a $45 million or $55 million contract, and he was invisible last year for the most part.
And it is going to be interesting with drafting Colston Loveland. So now you have 2 tight ends, and we see Ben Johnston like to do that kind of a system in Detroit. I imagine he'll bring that over here to Chicago. But like you said, do you think Cole Kmet is utilized properly, and now especially going into that 2 tight end system, is he still going to be used properly? We'll see.
A lot of 12 personnel in our future, I think.
So, to answer your question, Nick, I think there's a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams, and you see it in the headlines, and some of it's clickbait, and some of it is they're ESPN's having a slow day, and they're just trying to drum up business. Especially, we really haven't even touched upon all of that article that came out. I think we did with the one episode with Brandon here, but I mean, it seems like there's a lot riding on his shoulders. So I hate to add to that, but I do expect a little bit of a step forward from him as a quarterback, and not that he was terrible by any means last year. It was hard to really judge that with a really poor offensive line in front of him. I won't say that he didn't have weapons as receivers, but even then, one of them was Roma Dunze, who was a rookie, and DJ Moore checked out halfway through the season. So you're going to have to see him get a little bit more help for us to really determine what he's capable of. And that's where I think the step will come from, rather than it coming internally from him. I don't think he has to be a head and shoulders above where he was last year to prove himself. I think he can just continue to play his own game, and then Chicagoans are going to see it more when he has more time in the pocket. But I don't know. This is going to be a very interesting season. But you're going to be able to hear more about the Chicago Bears going forward. A lot more Bears talk, not only from this show on the Rise, but also a new show coming to WRMN.
Yes, sir. Joining us now at Saturdays, 6 p.m. So I'm pulling a little double duty every now and again. We're going to have 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Blow the Whistle. Blow the Whistle is one of our flagship shows over at IMS, over at Illinois Media School. So it'll be myself, David Dykstra, Andrew Valentine, and Tyler Butterball Buterball. Once again, probably every now and again, our buddy Frankie's going to be joining in this with us as well. So it's going to be fun. We're going to be talking a little bit, basically everything, anything and everything. One of our fun stuff is like going off the rails. So, we'll have some entertainment in there every now and again. So just whatever gets our goat that week, that's what you're going to be hearing about us. So more people to get up there, and probably more unathletic people to get up there and start complaining about sports. That's keep adding on.
Well, more perspective is always a good thing, especially here. This is an ever-growing WRMN sports department, and this sports department is knocking it out of the park, to use an actual sports pun here, but no short of any compliment that I can give the sports department. I mean, you talk about all of us here on the Rise, we could pat ourselves on the back, but also the truth about Chicago sports, Big Top Sports, and now joining in the mix, a show that's already pre-established and we know has kind of like Truth About Chicago Sports. That was also an IMS show, but we know that, Blow the Whistle has done some incredible work, especially surrounding the Bears, with your live shows and wrestling as well. A couple of different guests that you've had on. So I'm super excited and interested to see what you guys are bringing to the station here. So
It's gonna be fun. We're gonna get loud.
You have the empty chair and bring in John Cena.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, he's just invisible. You can't see him. Oh yeah. Well, we are going to go invisible for a second, but stay tuned with us because we have more baseball, Athletes Unlimited softball news, and so much more around the corner right here. You're listening to AM 1410 WRMN's On the Rise.
It's time to wake up and get on the rise with all things Chicago sports. And your host, Mike Napoletano.
I'm Italian. I get yelled at all the time. This is normal for me. Are you kidding me?
I love it.
With the Italians, we get really high, we get really emotional, and then we bring it right back down. And I'm just in the right back down part right now.
Daulton Cooper.
I think this is the year. He throws for over 4,000 yards. I think Ben Johnston has an understanding of how to take a quarterback and elevate. We've seen what he's done with Jared Goff. Obviously, Jared Goff had gotten to Super Bowl, and he was working with Sean McVay, but.
And Brandon Combs.
To tell me that a guy in Barry Bonds, who in 2004.
Here on WRMN AM 1410, we like to keep you informed and in tune to what's happening here in the Fox River Valley and what's going on here on WRMN. We recognize the importance of local radio to be a part of the conversation and to be a part of the community for the community.
We talked about the importance of community theater, but supporting community radio is a big deal too. And, for WRMN, this is a really cool thing that you guys do every day, and a really important thing. You have to have a local media outlet to talk about what's going on in your town. So you guys do a nice job.
Tune in to AM 1410, WRMN. Don't forget, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/WRMN Radio. Keep in tune, and informed on what's happening here in the Fox River Valley, right here on WRMN.
At Britain's Touchless Car Wash, they know life gets busy. That's why they're here 24/7 to keep your car looking spotless, fast, and easy. Their advanced brush-free wash technology delivers a sparkling clean without a single scratch, because they treat your car like it's their own. Here's the best part. Right now, you can get a free car wash just for joining their text club. It's simple. Just text BRITT to 30400, and your first wash is on them. Britain's Touchless Car Wash has 2 convenient locations, 1923 Larkin Avenue in Elgin and 555 Willow in West Dundee. They're proud to keep your car clean while giving back to our community. Text BRITT to 30400. That's BRITT to 30400. Now for your free car wash, and see why Britain's Touchless Car Wash is the fast, gentle, and reliable choice.
Kids today live in a world full of social pressure, bullying, and substance abuse. LEAD has a solution. LEAD connects law enforcement agencies with schools to deliver tested, proven, and effective anti-drugs and violence training to kids. Learn more about LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, and our work to create safer, healthier communities at leadrugs.org or on social media at We Are LEAD. Sponsored by LEAD, Inc.
In the middle of the night, everything will be all right if you listen to Coast right here on WRMN, 7 days a week from midnight to 5 a.m. Each night on Coast to Coast, listeners are captivated by George Noory with discussions on news and current events, conspiracy theories, UFOs, life after death, and all things curious and unexplained. Coast to Coast, every night, midnight to 5 a.m. right here on WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Are you dreaming of a getaway? Want to leave the stress of daily life behind? Whether it's a relaxing cruise or an adventurous land escape, planning the perfect vacation doesn't have to be a hassle. At Cruises International, they specialize in vacation destinations, land and sea, making your dreams come true. Located at 1721 Moon Lake Boulevard in Hoffman Estates, Cruises International isn't just about booking travel. They're your personal concierge, trusted travel advisor, and advocate. Your preferences are unique, and they'll take the time to understand exactly what you're looking for. From personalized service to their global network of specialists, they ensure that your vacation is tailor-made just for you. It's time to plan the vacation of a lifetime. Call 800-255-7447. That's 800-255-7447 today and speak to a cruise and vacation expert. Cruises International. It's time to set sail to your dream destination.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise. Myself, Mike Napoletano, alongside Daulton Cooper and Nick Johnston. We are talking some Athletes Unlimited softball. We got a chance, as we said, to talk to the wonderful Jenna Rose last week ahead of the inaugural games for this season at Parkway Bank Sports Complex over in Rosemont. That's the stadium. But the Bandits had 3 games over the weekend. That would be Saturday, Sunday, and then, of course, rolling into Tuesday. The Bandits took 2 out of those 3 games, a 3-1 victory to kick things off on Saturday. They did fall 6-3 to the Talons on Sunday, but then an 8-0 shutout for the Bandits on Tuesday, and this has kicked off an exciting season for Athletes Unlimited softball.
Yeah, no, they've been playing well. They lead the league in run differential too. They're plus 13, like you said, a big help for that 8-0 shutout win. But it's been exciting. I do like the scoring, the way that's kind of the individual players, kind of what Jenna Rose mentioned in that interview. I think it's definitely like a different view of the game entirely. Definitely adds some audience, and I think it's cool seeing the games on like MLB Network and ESPN Plus and so on and so forth. So very entertaining. It's good for the crowds. A lot of engagement. I saw on Jenna's story on Instagram, they had a full house. They were rocking. They had some beautiful days for it. Yeah, it was good. It was a good ball.
Yeah, I was tied up with Midwest Haunters Convention, as we talked about on the last edition of On the Rise on Saturday and Sunday, so I couldn't make it literally across the street to go and see the games. It was so funny. It was like, I'm right here, but I couldn't go. And then Tuesday, when I did try to go, sold out sold out Daulton, so wasn't able to get in the door. But of course,
that was fun getting out of the Dogs game, which is right next to it.
Right, yeah.
Which was also big because it's Tuesday. You said that was it's $2 hot dogs. So.
Oh my goodness! And it's like I don't want to say it's a cul-de-sac there, but it's a dead end. All the stadiums kind of lead just into parking lots over there. So
there's a bunch of companies
way.
And stuff, and then obviously the two stadiums itself. So it's a little tight. It's a little tight over there.
Great for the American Association. Great for the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, and great for Rosemont in general, of course, for all that traffic and revenue and such. But it's still a very exciting time, especially with getting this new league kicked off. Of course, AUSL was a thing last year, but it was very different than how it is this year with the branded teams and such. As we were mentioning, the Bandits, the highest run differential in the league right now. They carried on with a 6-5 win over the Volts, and then a 6-1 win over the Volts last night. They continue on. You were mentioning that games are being televised nationally on MLB Network. The Bandits will play today at 6:30 p.m. Central Time against the Volts. Of course, these are out in Louisiana, but this league will come back around in July. I believe it's July 7th through the 9th that they're here at Rosemont again. And then I believe it's the 22nd and the 23rd. And as Jenna was saying, it all ramps up towards a best-of-3 series for the championship between these four teams. When we look at the standings, it's early on, but the Bandits themselves, 4-1 through 5 games, 800 winning percentage. They've won 3 in a row. The Volts 2-3, the Talons 1-2, and the Blaze 1-2 as well. I know there were some rainouts yesterday, so they didn't get a chance to. They've been just postponed. So we'll continue to monitor this league as it goes on. But excited to have a full-on professional women's softball league that isn't just. I mean, not that it was anything less last year, but there was a bunch of captains with some of the high-end college talent that was coming up. Basically snake drafting, picking teams, and then, everybody comes together at the end and kind of, rallies around. But now there's some actual rivalries going on here.
Yeah, if you see and just to piggyback too, the Women's College World Series was great this year. They played 3 games. Texas ended up winning. But if you like offense, this is definitely a league for you. Just you were mentioning the Bandits. They have 9 out of their 12 rostered players are hitting over 300 currently. Wow. So pretty good. If you like offense, which I'm sure we're not really tuning into pitching battles, whether it's baseball or softball, it's fun to see the ball leave the park, and this is definitely a team to get behind for that.
Well, that is true. We've got more offense and more baseball from the Diamond for you here.
Loved one owns a gun, and for a while now, you've been concerned about their behavior. They're just not acting like themselves. They've been distant. They've been unpredictable. They've been lashing out. They've been saying things that make you worried they might harm themselves or friends or family. Or you're worried this loved one might hurt you. Maybe they recently threatened someone with their gun. Something needs to be done, and you wish more than anything you could hit pause on this situation. Well, here in Illinois, you can, with a firearm restraining order. In extreme cases, this order temporarily prevents a person in crisis from having a firearm, giving them time to heal before they do something dangerous or even deadly. If you are worried about a loved one in crisis who has access to a firearm, learn more about firearm restraining orders at illinois.gov/pause to heal. A public service announcement brought to you by the Illinois Department of Public Health, Brady, and the Ad Council.
This is Larry Jones, and I'd like to talk to you about my bank, American Eagle Bank in South Elgin. Has your bank changed names in the last 10 years? Is your bank another faceless branch with headquarters in another city? Are you tired of earning next to nothing on your savings account or certificates of deposit, or does your personal banker treat you like a stranger? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then you're ready for a new banking experience, and American Eagle is the place for you. American Eagle is a locally owned independent bank that's rooted in the community, and American Eagle customers are greeted by name and treated with the respect that they deserve. American Eagle has an innovative program, Eagle Savings, that teaches your children to save while earning prizes and rewards. American Eagle offers great rates on certificates of deposit. My bank is located in South Elgin on Randall Road between the Target and Caputo's and is open Monday through Saturday. Give them a call at 847-742-7400, and a real person will answer the phone. American Eagle Bank, a place where you matter.
Did you get a call or message that mentioned Social Security that made you feel threatened or scared? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, press you for personal information, or demand instant payment. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Don't fall for it. Hang up, ignore them. Report this criminal activity to oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
The Moose Lodge 799 in Elgin is a place to connect with family, friends, and your community. Moose Lodge 799 is conveniently located at 925 South McLean Boulevard, and they offer fun family activities, exciting community service projects, and live entertainment on the weekends. Moose Lodge 799 opens at 2 p.m. Tuesday through Friday and 11 a.m. on weekends. For more information about becoming a member, call 847-741-0799. Moose Lodge 799, where you're more than a member, you're family.
When disaster strikes, flood or fire, every second counts. At Emergency Construction Group, they specialize in immediate response and same-day service for any residential, commercial, or industrial emergency across the Chicagoland area. With over 30 years of experience, they've got the expertise, manpower, and equipment to handle any size loss fast. They follow strict IICRC guidelines to restore your property the right way, the first time. Their team values transparency, constant communication, and strong ethical standards because your peace of mind matters. Licensed, bonded, and insured, they're here for you 24/7, 365 days a year. Call 855-4ECG now. That's 855-432-4669. Or visit their website at emergencyconstructiongroup.com and let Emergency Construction Group put your life back together one step at a time. That's Emergency Construction Group. Your satisfaction is their passion.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. I am Mike Napoletano here from On the Rise alongside my co-hosts Daulton Cooper and Nick Johnston. Gentlemen, we've had quite the busy week on the diamond. We already talked about Athletes Unlimited softball. Well, we have to recap the White Sox as well. We pre-recorded last week, so that was all from Thursday, so we didn't get a chance to talk to you about the start of that Kansas City Royals series at home, the final series in the homestand for the Chicago White Sox. They started that out with a 7-2 win Friday night, continuing their undefeated streak in those City Connect 2.0 jerseys. So White Sox are undefeated when repping those Bulls threads, but Luis Robert drove in 3 runs, and the White Sox beat the Royals 7-2. Friend of the show, Tony Lopez, was at the game. He was telling me that it was an electric atmosphere that night, and the White Sox, they started out hot. They lost the lead, but then powered back late in the eighth. The eighth inning was the big inning for them as they put up 5 on the board. Both teams finished with 7 hits, but Kansas City 2 errors, which kind of made up a little bit of the difference. But that was the first game. The second game, the White Sox took it to Kansas City one more time to take the series. That was a 4-1 victory on Saturday. Our co-host here, Brandon Combs, was at the game. Unfortunately, we won't get his insight until next week. He was also at the Sunday game, though. Unfortunately, the White Sox dropped the conclusion. They came ever so close once again to their first sweep of the season, but a 7-5 loss to those Kansas City Royals, and then they go on the road to play the Houston Astros, who they had taken 2 out of 3 thus far through this season from. They continued in that winning column against Houston with a 4-2 victory, but they dropped the next 2 games. The first one, 10-2, tough fashion there, but a 4-3 loss, a close one Thursday, which led into the White Sox staying out in the Lone Star State to face the American League side of things, the Texas Rangers, and they were looking to get back in the win column. Unfortunately, a 3-1 loss there. I'm burying the lead here, and we're going to get to the trade that happened, but what have you guys seen from this White Sox team this past week?
It's just been overall better baseball, and not necessarily couple wins here and there. That's been nice for sure, but it's been truly watching the development of these young rookies where when they beat the Houston Astros, they had 6 different rookies starting at that day.
Yes, yeah.
All that young talent. I mean, again, Chase Mydroff. You got, obviously now with Tim Elko getting called up and probably looking like he's going to be staying for a little bit this time. Everything else in between. I mean, Shane Smith on the bump. I mean, it's been fantastic to watch these guys. Where again, you've truly seen where last year these guys were down and out every single game. Didn't feel like they had any fight in them, and now it's just a complete 180, complete turnaround where these young guys, these young talent that are continuing to develop. They're like, all right, guys. Again, we might not be up to par. Maybe they're probably not saying this exactly right, but they might not be up to par in terms of talent-wise. But any given day, as long as you're fighting and trying, and again, this pitching staff is keeping them close in games. Is just unfortunately a lack of power is kind of just really casting a shadow on them. So, like I said, it's really nice to watch this as a fan, where it's like, okay. Again, the talent level might not be there, but at any given time, at any given day, the White Sox can't put up a fight and end up giving you a win. So I really like that change whereas, again, compared to last year, where it's just like, all right, let's get through this 3 hours, let's get through these 4 hours, and let's pray that they don't get no hit or something like that. Right. So it's actually, like I said, it's a breath of fresh air. Again, I'll wrap it up with, I think all this talent, when developing, eventually this will lead to wins. Asking a White Sox fan to hold on and be patient is just the last thing you want to ask them. Yeah. But you got to be just that much more patient. I swear, it's gonna come. It's right there.
It's the difference between wanting to go to work and having to go to work. Absolutely, 100%. I think what you just described for sure. But they're 5-5 in their last 10, and that's like 3 series between the Tigers, the Royals, and the Astros, and all of those are playoff contending teams at the moment. So to your point, they are showing a little bit more fight. It's just the offense. They're atrocious on the road, and that just speaks to the youth, because they're 7-29 on the road, and they're 16-18 at home. So they're playing basically 500 baseball at home, and then they go on the road and they just turn into a different team. But again, I think that just speaks to the youth, and I think there's a lot of good things looking forward to the South Side. And maybe in 2033, when the team finally changes ownership, maybe that'll be the time that it's ready to take off and skyrocket. But we'll see. But to your point, it's definitely more watchable. It's a lot more fun to at least see the energy of the team. I think that's to your Nick's point. I think that is the big difference. It's just the overall energy and vibe.
We did talk about the changing of hands and ownership last week, so go ahead and check that out on that episode on our YouTube. If you weren't tuned in live last Saturday, I said Leury Garcia twice when I meant Lenyn Sosa, so I wanted to correct myself on that. But that's, you talk about the youth, and you mentioned Shane Smith specifically. 3-3, he goes 6 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts, and 2 walks in that game against the Astros, in which the White Sox got the win. That was that game in which you were mentioning there were 6 different rookies that appeared for the White Sox. So you're seeing a lot of this youth. I do think that is a factor when they go on the road. But as you said, 3 contending teams. And if you extend it back to what we were talking about last week, they split a 4-game series with the Detroit Tigers, the best team in the MLB right now. So the White Sox are putting up a fight. Yes, at home most of these times, but even a little bit on the road, they're scoring early. And when they're scoring early, sometimes the bullpen gets a little shaky and they lose it in late innings. Or they're digging themselves a little bit of a hole that typically White Sox fans don't see them climb out of. And yet, what did I say? That last Friday night's game against the Kansas City Royals, they dug themselves out of that hole in the 8th inning and got the victory. So
best examples were last game and then the Houston game too, where just missed out on a Miguel Vargas game-tying home run in that top of the 9th against the Astros, and then just last night, bases loaded. Unfortunately, Michael A. Taylor strikes out, and again, difference from last year. Weren't even close to coming back in these games. Wouldn't be making it a fight until they were 0-1. They were like, I'm gonna make this up, but it's gonna be like 0-140 when they were down after the 7th inning or something like that. It was something. They put up some weird stat. Again, I could probably I'll pull it up in just a little bit. But after a while, like I mentioned, if they were losing past the 7th, there's just no point of even watching it anymore. But now again, that's the difference right now. They're putting up a fight.
Did you say they hadn't won a series yet this season? They haven't had a sweep.
They haven't had a sweep.
So
they've won 2 couple series.
So you're telling me that
they've won series. They haven't had a sweep.
You're telling me the Rockies have more sweeps this year than the Chicago White Sox?
Well, actually, okay. If you look at the White Sox season last year, the 2024 White Sox compared to the 2023 White Sox. Now, the 2023 White Sox was finally getting over that peak and that hump because in 2022, the White Sox went exactly 81-81. But when I say getting over the peak and getting over the hump, I mean in the bad sense. That was finally the downfall. You have an exactly 500 season after 2 years of back-to-back playoff appearances. I put that in air quotes because of the fact that 2020 was a little bit of a
play-in game,
COVID ball, and it was an extended wild card and whatever. But that was the first time in the White Sox history that they had made the postseason back-to-back years. That's an awful stat. You follow that up with a perfect, and by perfect I mean bad, perfect 81-81 500 season, and you're like, okay, where is this going? Well, it's going off the rails is where it's going. You're going down the mountain now, and you're starting to have these losing seasons. The White Sox had a really bad losing streak in 2023. And they didn't get their first sweep until like June or July. Last year, the White Sox set that horrible record, and yet they had a sweep earlier than they did the year prior.
Nice.
So everybody was like, oh, well, at least they've swept a series. And it's like, yeah, well, you're on track to lose 121 games, and then you did that. So that I don't, yes, sweeps are nice, of course, get the brooms out, but I don't factor that in. So the Rockies having a sweep before the White Sox. Okay. Hey, chip away, get the wins where you can. The White Sox have had 3 wins in a row. It just hasn't been against one team. It was against your Cincinnati Reds for 2 games, and then the previous game against the Marlins. So it's been there. But that stat that you had mentioned, they were like 0 and whatever.
They were 0 for a lifetime.
I do remember covering that on this show. So you're not making that. I mean, the numbers, of course, we don't have them sitting in front of us. But
it's tough to find that one out.
It was bad, and though that team gave up, and that's a stat that shows you, okay, there's no fight in this team after they're down like that, and that's not the case this year. So we'll see going forward if that improves, especially as we mentioned this youth movement here, and the White Sox having some promising, still to be determined pieces for the future. And a lot of that you see when the White Sox decide to trade Andrew Vaughn. It looks like they're keeping Tim Elko up, and he is going to be kind of that first base replacement. But the Andrew Vaughn trade itself was a 1-for-1 deal. Savali coming back from the Brewers, who had just been moved to the bullpen quite literally the night before. As another rookie was coming up for the Brewers. So the White Sox are getting a pitcher that, has had some struggles. Aaron Savali, a right-handed pitcher. They're getting cash considerations from the Brewers as well. That's nice. But Andrew Vaughn, I mean, I know you were kind of advocating for Vaughn when we were having that Tim Elko debate. Did you think it would happen so soon?
No, but honestly, very, very happy that if it's the idea that don't have to deal with the go back and forth, like, all right, Tim Elko, is he going to stay up and develop? No, like I said, we kind of clear cut is that answer now. We're going to see Tim Elko for the time being. If anything, knowing the White Sox, I thought probably Andrew Vaughn was just going to get DFA, going to be gone from the system entirely, and probably he's going to get picked up by the Mariners or something. But good that the White Sox were able to actually get something out of it. Again, is it a blockbuster trade that wins the division? No, not by any sort of means. But Aaron Savali can come in, eat up some innings. I think he's going to be a decent little starter for the White Sox. Like I said, adds to this rotation for what it's worth. So I think it's nice. Again, just for Aaron Savali to wake up and be like, oh, I want to get traded. Is like, to Chicago, it's like no. But like I said, for the White Sox to get over it and trade Andrew Vaughn, just is it the best? Again, on paper, is it the best thing? Like, number 3 overall pick going as Aaron for a 30-year-old 4.9 ERA pitcher? No, not by any means. But when you've seen the struggles for the past year, you kind of see that the ship has kind of sailed on Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah, you definitely want some kind of a return for a 3rd overall pick. But then again, if it's a 3rd overall pick that's going to garner that return, you're most likely keeping him because you made a good 3rd overall pick. In this case, the White Sox, it was a good 3rd overall pick for a while there, and it has quickly fell from grace. And what I am surprised, I was headed to that AC/DC concert right before we went to the Indy 500, and I got an alert that the White Sox had traded catcher Matt Tice, and that seemed sudden to me. This trade, of course, was even more sudden because of the fact that Savali had, like I said, just been moved to the bullpen the night before in lieu of a rookie, and the White Sox, I mean, they pulled the trigger. So do I want to see these moves being made by the White Sox? Yes, because they haven't been stern in their decision making in the past. However, are these decisions a little brash? Are they a little quick? Like, are we looking at? But I think in the long run it will pay out. But no, you don't.
No,
think
the Brewers were putting a house fire out because he was not happy to go to the bullpen.
That's true.
Yeah, he was like, not happy is putting it very lightly, and he was very vocal about that within the organization. So he basically backed himself into getting traded. So he gave the Brewers no opportunity. But he did get drafted by Cleveland. He spent some time in Tampa too. Like, he's been a competent starter. I mean, this man's won 12 games in the season before. He's 12-5 in 2021. And, I mean, he's had some good years. So I think the White Sox win this trade. As long as Andrew Vaughn doesn't turn into all of a sudden an all-star, I think they win this trade. They're going to get somebody that can mentor the starting pitching a little bit. He's been there. He's been in playoff games. He's pitched in postseason, stuff like that. So, obviously, that's where this team wants to go. But I think at the end of the day, I think it was a good trade for the White Sox because they were in that predicament we talked about a couple weeks ago. It's like, do you play the youth? Do you play, the guy you drafted 3 overall? Like, we're going to sit here in limbo for another season and a half? Like, let's just make a decision. Let's go one direction. Let's be, indicative on other decisions and let's see what we got.
That would typically be the White Sox thing to do, is sit in that limbo for another year or two. So.
And for what it's worth, I'm still rooting for Andrew Vaughn. Like, I think he's still gonna struggle, and it's gonna be nice for him to get a change of scenery, which is sometimes the best fit for some guys like that. Get different coaches in your ear to kind of help you out and maybe change your swing and change your patterns. But he's gonna have a little bit of maybe a hard time getting into the Brewers system because right now he's in AAA's in Nashville for them right now. He did not go right to the Brewers team.
Right.
So he'll kind of be having to find some times between him, Rhys Hoskins, and Christian Yelich at DH and first base. So I was going
to say there's a really depth chart there. Yep.
Otherwise, I mean, he, for what it's worth, played right field for a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be back out there. It's going to be pretty tough for him to probably find some playing time on this Brewers squad.
And they have a young team out in Milwaukee too. I think Christian Yelich is like literally their old guy, and he's like 32. Like he's not even that old.
Basically the face of their franchise in some ways. So like we were saying, that's a tough depth chart to crack. Fans aren't going to be too keen on letting Yelich out of the lineup. But we've seen the Brewers have a slew of really talented first basemen over the years.
Yelich is having an okay year, 13 home runs, 42 RBIs, 236. So it's not like he's
healthy,
struggling. Yeah, that's the best part too. He's healthy.
Don't break out the Walker and the cane just yet. I mean, he's still he's still a very talented player in this league. So we shall see. I did get to talk to a former Brewer and Tampa Bay Ray, as you were kind of alluding to Savali's career. Just yesterday, that was the World Series hero, Brett Phillips, who is now the batting coach of the Kane County Cougars. That'll be up on our Instagram later. So, it's
out right now.
It's out right now.
You can check it out on our Facebook page, our TikTok. It's out right now. Look how quick
he is.
Dalton is on it. He did it as I was saying it. It was telekinesis. So, yeah, very nice, very cool. So go ahead and check that out and go and follow us on the socials. That's On the Rise on Instagram. But you can find it through myself or Dalton as well.
And Facebook. Facebook will allow a little bit more of the bigger bandwidth of video. So a lot of the full videos will be on Facebook, and then obviously the mashups will be more Instagram, TikTok.
You guys brought this up too right before we were about to go on. Who's the next White Sox to go? Who's the next White Sox to go?
It's got to be Michael Taylor, right? I mean, he just struck out last night. I don't know who's going to want him.
I would just cut him, let him go.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where you got to go. I feel like he's like 34, I believe, or 33. He's definitely one of the older guys in the lineup. And I mean, you said it yourself against Houston. They had 6 rookies in the lineup and beat a team that's been in the ALCS for 6 straight years, give or take. So, I mean, to your point, it's got to be some point. They got to pull the trigger and get young.
Did you see that stat that every single time Michael A. Taylor has hit a home run, the White Sox have won the game? But it's only been 3 or 4 times, so we're not talking a huge sample size here. But
he moves the needle.
If he hits a home run,
if you're hitting 3 for 3, that's 100%, my pal.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Is it probably most likely what everyone else and their mother's saying? Is it Luis Robert Jr.? So he's starting to get a little bit hotter now, starting to hit the ball a little bit more. It's probably the writings on the wall. Luis Robert Jr. As soon as he starts getting even a little bit more hot from now.
He had that really nice game that I talked about last Friday night, but then it was the Luis Robert Jr. show, that first game against the Astros on Tuesday night, where he doubled to right in the second. That scored Kyle Teal, and then a homer to left center in the fourth. is what helped the White Sox extend their lead to 4-1. So, I mean, he also made a nice catch out in the field, sliding catch. So, I mean, the resurgence for Luis Robert is kind of coming back, but he even said, his own words and not mine, that he was asked, where do you think you're going to go at the trade deadline? And, of course, through translation, his answer was, I don't think anybody wants me right now. And I mean, that's a shot at one's own confidence and not something you want to hear or see from your star center fielder. And if he can get back to the Luis Robert Jr. all-star that he was before, then it's a good thing. But at the same time, then, yeah, we might be talking more trade block at that point given where this White Sox team
They
is.
also have 3 right fielders listed on the roster right now. You got Slater, Tauchman, and Taylor. And Taylor is 34, and so is Tauchman. So I feel like at some point, it's not the most premium position in the league either. So
and Slater's been a nice piece for this White Sox team. I mean, we've kind of
So is Tauchman. Tauchman's been fun.
Tauchman is a nice depth piece there as well too, but also that veteran presence, and he has the wherewithal.
Do you know what's really funny? I was watching the broadcast last night, and I don't know if it's like a mind trick. I don't know if you guys pay attention to this, but like when they introduced the starting lineup, they didn't put your batting average. You know how they normally put batting averages? They put OPSs to make it look everything was higher, because like one was like 862. I think the lowest one I saw was like 302, and I'm like, I like what they're doing here. They're psyching us out to think that this team is like really good at hitting, or like they're just trying to pump them up. And
they get on base.
Little subtle things like that. I just thought that was so funny. I'm like, wait a minute, when did they start putting OPS as like the opening stat to introduce the lineup? Usually it's just batting average.
Stats.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't want to put like the 205 batting average that somebody's got out there. I just thought that was really funny. I didn't know if you guys noticed that.
That's how you push your brand, right? That's that. Not to get political, but that's that politician move. That we're doing this, and don't pay attention to what's behind the curtain over here.
Instead of Luis Roberts like 186 batting average, we'll put his.
You can manipulate numbers to make any sort of narrative you want. It's so great.
There's a bias.
Oh, sorry, 193. Yeah, but we'll put his OPS of 596 or 588, excuse me, out there instead. So just a little bit different.
Completely unrelated side tangent. It just makes me smile looking at this roster, and I look at the catchers, and I just see Edgar Kira and Kyle Teal.
Yeah,
it's been. What feels like a couple of years now of hearing these names, finally they're up, and these guys are running the helm. And again, where you're going to get those rookie catchers with those rookie pitchers now, and they're still making good decisions. And oh my goodness, well, it was the play-by-play for
John Schriffen.
Yeah, Schriffen. I was tripping on the name for a second. I mean, Schriffen even made that same point, and Gordon Beckham back and forth when they were doing this last series. It's just knowing the amount of rookies that were out there, and it's exactly right. Up until that point, even throughout the game, there was no boneheaded, head-scratching decisions of like, why would you call for that pitch? Why in that situation are you just basically lacing a meatball right down the middle? It's like, no, they're not only are they executing, they're making great decisions between the pitch. And then, like I said, if you watch that game, there wasn't really a lot of shake-off. There was a lot of really great communication. So, again, just a breath of fresh air with this team. Wins will come.
And Kyle Teal really controls the running game. His pop speed is next level. I mean, I know we talk about offense and everything, but his pop speed and ability to control the base running nowadays is crucial. Very underrated.
You were mentioning seeing some of these names up, and it does seem kind of surreal, right? Because, a lot of being a White Sox fan and paying attention to White Sox baseball is you hear about all these names for years and years and years and years, and you're like, when is this guy finally going to come up? And we were asking ourselves this stuff at the start of the season, and here we are in June, and, some of it is by necessity. You needed to fill holes even on a team that isn't really going anywhere this year, but a lot of it, too, is just, all right, these guys are ready, and that's a good sign as well. So the White Sox continue this series against the Texas Rangers today at 3:05 p.m. You can listen to every single White Sox game right here on AM 1410 WRMN, the home of the 2025 Chicago White Sox. So not just the Chicago Bears. You're listening to the White Sox here on AM 1410 WRMN as well. But a 3:05 start today. That'll be Vassell versus DeGrom. So that'll be an interesting matchup, young versus old, and definitely tenured. The conclusion of the series against the Rangers will be at 1:35 p.m. tomorrow. Then the White Sox come back home after an off day on Monday to open up a series against the St. Louis Cardinals Tuesday through Thursday. That's 6:40 p.m. starts on Tuesday and Wednesday, a 1:10 conclusion on Thursday. And then you have a series next weekend in Toronto. They go over the border, and they have a 6:07 start a 2:07 start on Saturday, and a 12:37 p.m. start on Sunday. Kind of weird times, but all right, we'll allow it. And you can catch all of your White Sox baseball right here on AM 1410 WRMN. We've, of course, got more baseball news when we talk. We got to talk Northsiders as well. However, when we come back at the 9 o'clock hour, we are going to be talking more about what we kind of skimped on last week, which was the NHL Stanley Cup Final. We've got to really dive into that series because it has been nothing but entertaining. We've also got some NBA news as WRMN was in person in Indy on Wednesday night. What a crazy day trip myself and Grant Leader took. But we have some on-the-scene news from there. And, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder tying the series at 2 last night. So both series tied at 2, poised to probably go to a Game 7. So we have all of that and more. At the 10 o'clock hour, of course, we have the truth about Chicago sports. So stick around here for one more hour of On the Rise with the three of us. That's Daulton Cooper, Nick Johnston, and myself, Mike Napoletano. And then, of course, 10 to noon, the truth about Chicago sports with Blake Cowell, who was in the chat earlier saying, bear down. And then, of course, your host, Marcus Mack, maybe a little bit of Sophia Blackburn to talk about the NHL Stanley Cup Final as well. So stay tuned and stay locked in right here at AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise.
At Britain's Touchless Car Wash, they know life gets busy. That's why they're here 24/7 to keep your car looking spotless, fast, and easy. Their advanced brush-free wash technology delivers a sparkling clean without a single scratch, because they treat your car like it's their own. Here's the best part. Right now, you can get a free car wash just for joining their text club. It's simple. Just text BRITT to 30400, and your first wash is on them. Britain's Touchless Car Wash has 2 convenient locations, 1923 Larkin Avenue in Elgin and 555 Willow in West Dundee. They're proud to keep your car clean while giving back to our community. Text BRITT to 30400. That's BRITT to 30400. Now for your free car wash, and see why Britain's Touchless Car Wash is the fast, gentle, and reliable choice.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410 Elgin time, 9 o'clock.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Today marks the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army and the annual celebration of Flag Day. The nation's capital will be the site of a military parade this evening to mark that occasion. Speaking with the Salem Radio Network, military affairs analyst Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis said the need to honor all of our military is very real, considering all the dangers the country is facing.
Just like we're seeing what the Israelis are doing now to prevent a nuclear catastrophe in the not-so-distant future, we've got to remember that if we don't guard our borders, if we don't guard our interests abroad and at home, that we won't continue to be a free people.
President Trump says he's excited about this evening's parade. Gets underway at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
I think it's a time to celebrate our military. You know, we've rebuilt our military largely.
And as for the event coinciding with the president's 79th birthday, he says that was not by design.
It is my birthday, but I'm not celebrating my birthday. I'm celebrating Flag Day. It happens to be the same day, so I take a little heat. But Flag Day is the appropriate date. And we're celebrating 250 years of the Army, a great service.
And people are pouring into the nation's capital in hopes of observing events tonight. California Democrat Senator Alex Padilla briefly detained for disrupting a Los Angeles news conference this week with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
Senator Padilla was physically confronted by law enforcement, forced out of the room where Noem held her press conference, and handcuffed on the floor. Padilla held his own press briefing in Los Angeles after being allowed to speak with the secretary at the end of hers.
At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question.
Speaker Mike Johnston told reporters at the Capitol in Washington that Padilla's conduct was unbecoming of a senator.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate.
Padilla's fellow Democrats responded with shock and dismay as they left the Capitol after taking the week's final votes Thursday. Bernie Bennett reporting.
More from townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454.
The investigation continues into the crash of an Air India plane that went down in western India this week with 242 people on board, and as Ed Donahue reports, that included just one survivor.
Vishwash Kumar Ramesh was thrown from the plane. His doctor says Ramesh was disoriented with multiple injuries all over his body, but he seems to be out of danger.
This is a miracle he survived.
In Britain, brother Nayan Kumar Ramesh says they were in contact.
He video called my dad. As he crashed, he said, our plane's crashed. All of that. I don't know where my brother is. I don't see any other passengers. I don't know how I'm alive.
Another medic says Ramesh told him immediately after the plane took off, it began descending and suddenly split in two, throwing him out before a loud explosion. I'm Ed Donahue.
The airline confirmed that 240 people on board were killed and that there was just the one survivor. Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. Correspondent Haya Panjawi reports on an update to one of President Trump's first executive orders.
President Trump's order looked to require documentary proof of citizenship for everyone registering to vote for federal elections. It also said that mailed ballots could only be accepted if they were received by Election Day. The Massachusetts judge says the Constitution doesn't grant the president any specific powers over elections. Democratic state attorneys general called the Republican president's executive order an overreach and unconstitutional. The White House defended Trump's order as standing up for free, fair, and honest elections. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Oil prices surged and stocks slumped on Friday, and worries that escalating violence between Israel and Iran could damage the flow of crude oil around the world along with the global economy. You'll find more of these stories at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Bob Agnew.
Systems run everything. Government, economy, media, justice. They shape your choices, your opportunities, your future. But do they work for you or against you? On Apolitical Talk Show, we break them down, not to destroy, but to understand. Because if you don't see how the system works, you won't see when it's being manipulated or who's benefiting from it. Power belongs to those who know the rules, challenge the loopholes, and demand accountability. That starts with knowledge. That starts here. Join us weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. as we uncover what's really happening behind the headlines so you can decide for yourself what's fair, what's broken, and what needs to change. Apolitical Talk Show, breaking down the systems to build them up together. Right here, weekdays 4 to 6 on WRMN, the talk of the town.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise here at the 9 o'clock hour. Myself, Mike Napoletano, alongside Nick Johnston on the board over here, and Daulton Cooper, one of our other co-hosts here. We've got some basketball news, gentlemen, and as you were pointing out during the break, you reminded me we did pre-record last week. We pre-recorded on Thursday while Game 1 between the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder was going on. And we chalked it up at the very end of our show to, you know what, with this 12-point lead or so that the Thunder have in Game 1 at home, they're taking Game 1 as we predicted. And then we jumped off the air, and that was not the case.
The Pacers pacered.
The Pacers paced, yeah.
They did exactly what they've been doing to everybody.
Wow, yeah. To answer Brandon Combs' question, no, I am not a Pacers fan, is what he was asking on our YouTube. No, what was it? What was it on? It was on our Facebook. He was like, "Are you a Pacers fan?" No. Bulls fan first and foremost, but I had to rep the host city, especially with Grant Leader, and we'll get to Game 3 in just a moment.
I'm easily bought. If a team gives me free stuff, I'm a fan for that
right?
day.
This was all free. And honestly, we weren't really even supposed to be in the pregame party, and I'll say that live on the air, but we were there. So, nice. It is what it is. You can't stop us now, right?
A lanyard gets you pretty far.
It does. It does. So, I mean, I love the yes, sirs, because that's yes, cute. Sir. And then the little apostrophe is
what the helly?
What the helly Burton?
Yeah,
the little apostrophe is the state of Indiana, which is kind of a nice touch. But yeah, I mean, look at these things, right? Like NBA Finals, ladies and gents. I was there last year. I mean, we talked about this on the show for the Eastern Conference Finals. It did not go the Pacers' way, but they have now taken 2 games in this series. And the first one was that Game 1 where Tyrese Halliburton once again, with basically a buzzer beater. This time it wasn't by nature a buzzer beater, but with only fractions of seconds on the clock, getting the win as they come back and shock that Thunder crowd to start the series.
Yeah, they led for 0.3 of a second, and that's all they needed to lead for, baby.
I was just about to say, if you were to tell me that a team only led for 0.3 seconds, I wouldn't believe that they would end up winning. So.
Right? It's usually a Bulls stat, and these days they're not winning games. So that would be a Chicago thing right there. But they, of course, dropped Game 2. I think it was predetermined and in everybody's minds that
20-point loss.
Yeah, that the Thunder would defend their home court and even the series going to Indiana. But then Wednesday is Game 1 in Indianapolis, but Game 3 of the series. And Indy showed up, man. I mean, the atmosphere outside the stadium there was buzzing. It was yellow everywhere you could see. They had the overrate this t-shirts on because Tyrese Halliburton was, by his peers, rated the most overrated player in the NBA. But then on top of some of those shirts, they had it was so funny because the shirt itself is like Tyrese Halliburton's body, and the hands come up to about where the collar is on the shirt, so that it's like a choking shirt. But some of them have the full silhouette of him. Some of them even had the choking silhouette with the overrate this at the bottom. I mean, the creativity was off the charts, and everybody's wearing either Tyrese Halliburton or Siakam jerseys and stuff. I mean, it was everywhere, and it was a really nice atmosphere right outside that stadium.
Yeah. And
I was just about to say, overall, I think what Rick Carlisle said at the end of Game 3 was kind of the big thing. He said to the Pacers fans, he's like, we're going to need this atmosphere that they were providing in Oklahoma, all these fans, this ruckus crowd. They have the Oklahoma City, they have that tradition where they don't sit down until the first made basket is there. So that fandom is there, and they're crazy, and they love that. They needed to replicate that in Indiana. They did in that Game 3 and in Game 4 for what it's worth, but that was a really just detrimental loss in that Game 4, and I'm sure we'll get to that. So I just think it was really big.
Yeah. Scott Foster, the extender, showed up, baby.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, listen, I think in both cases, both in Oklahoma and in Indianapolis, you saw from this OKC team that they dropped the game before, maybe get a little complacent, and you know that they are that team that is going to fight and be the juggernaut that we thought they were going into the series to even things up. I don't think it was any surprise that there was going to be a bounce back, like we were saying, in Oklahoma. That was a given. On the road was a little bit more questionable, but last night, Game 4, they get the job done, and they come away with the win to tie the series at 2. That was a 111-104 final. And we head back to Oklahoma City for Game 5 of this series, tied at 2. That's a little bit of foreshadowing for when we get into hockey, because that series is tied at 2 as well. So both sides of the ball and the puck, we're getting some exciting finals here that are basically poised to go 7. The way I see it, when teams are tied in a series after 2, And I know, this is the cliche thing to say, but it's a best of 3 series at this point. And I think that is a testament to how evenly matched, of course, I'm sounding like as bland as those announcers that, I think the best 2 teams in the World Series this year are A and B, the 2 teams that are in the World Series. But I mean, it's cut and dry here. Like, these 2 teams are that evenly matched that we're sitting here in a 2-2 tie, that a best of 7 series has now quickly become a best of 3 series.
Do you know the last time the Pacers lost back-to-back games?
I do not.
March 12th.
March 12th
was the last time they lost back-to-back. Wow. I was trying to look up to see when the last time OKC had lost back-to-back games. I can't find it, but yeah, I did hear that stat for the Pacers. So at this pace, pun intended, they're going to win the championship in 7 because they just lost. They'd win game 5, they'd lose game 6, and then they win game 7.
Or they could win it in 6.
There you go. I mean, I'm sure the people of Indiana, you and your Homer hat, they would love that.
No, get out of here. Bulls first. I see red. But listen, I mean, you've either jinxed them that they're going to lose in Oklahoma now for the first time back to back, or if you're a betting man, take the Pacers in game 5 to win on the road.
April 4th and 6th was the last time that the Oklahoma City Thunder lost back-to-back
games. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, listen, that is what you have to do basically in today's NBA to get to where they're at. Is you can't be losing back-to-back.
They've only lost back-to-back games twice throughout that entire year. Yeah. I'm looking at their wins and losses. It's just a bunch of green W's.
Yeah, literally.
Must be nice to see one of those. Yeah. We wouldn't know anything about that here in Chicago.
What's up, Grant?
Here.
Yeah. He says, thunder up. Listen, man. I mean, he was repping OKC, and the lady at the security check, of course, we're getting in with our press passes there, and she stops him, and I'm like, oh, he's my cameraman for today. Like, I do need somebody to hold the camera. And she's like, yeah, but he's wearing an Oklahoma City Thunder jersey, so
he deserves a raise.
The cost to get in is 5 jumping jacks, and he did his jumping jacks. They were kind of half done jumping jacks. I got to critique the form a little bit, but Grant did he served his time. So game 5 will be on the 16th, so that is Monday. It's on ABC. Game 6 would be the 19th. I'm got to take a look at my calendar here.
And while you're doing that real quick, do you think it's funny how we, the general public, bullied Adam Silver into putting the Larry O'Brien trophy on the court after game 1? Because I don't know if you guys saw all the outrage.
Is it physically there now?
No, I think it's still computer. I think it's still virtually done. But like game 1, they didn't have it, right? And then social media was in a tizzy. We literally bullied the NBA
rightfully
into.
So. Are they going to go all out for this in-season tournament and change the whole floor to blue? But they can't add the Larry O'Brien trophy, which has just been a staple for the past 10, 12 NBA finals up until the last couple of years.
I couldn't agree more. But I just thought that was so funny how we, the general public, could bully a commissioner into doing what we wanted to do.
Oh my!
It's the voice. That's what we're supposed to do. We're watching. We're wasting our time watching these guys play. Might as well make the court look good. I mean, come on.
Hey, I'm all for the changing colors of the courts. I know some people are against it, but you'll get your Father's Day to yourselves on Sunday. Yes, Game 5 is Monday, the 16th. Game 6 would be Thursday the 19th. If there is a necessity for a Game 7, that will be next Sunday, right on Grant Leader's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy. Grant, I don't know.
Make or break the whole
that
day.
Is, I know what that man's doing that night. And honestly, if it comes to a Game 7, man, and you want to cancel all the birthday plans that the boys are trying to make with you, I would not blame you at all.
I'll pick up a shift
at UA.
Nice.
So, but that is the basketball side of things. We have a little bit of hockey news coming up right after a little bit of a break here, but stay tuned with us. We'll be talking the NHL Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals that have been nothing short but exciting, and also a little bit of Blackhawks news right here on AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
The weather is getting better, and we know it's the time when ladders and DIYers come out. Before you start any new outdoor projects, ComEd wants you to know that electricity can jump from a power line to you and the tools you're using. So maintain a safe distance from any power lines. You can also call ComEd at 1-800-EDISON-1 to have those power lines de-energized the next time you do any type of work around them.
Back in his own zone now with
Stay safe. Stay back. ComEd, powering lives.
Political party poopers got you down? Shake it off and join me, Dennis every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRMN for A Political Talk Show, where we cut through the doom and gloom with a focus on America first, constitutional values, and a populist perspective that puts you, the citizen, at the center of the conversation. At WRMN, the talk of the town, we're not afraid to challenge the status quo and bring you the straight talk you need. Whether you're frustrated with the political establishment or looking for a clear, some nonsense analysis, this show has you covered. Tune in. Let's take on the issues together with a fresh, unfiltered approach. Catch us every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRMN, A Political Talk Show. WRMN, the talk of the town.
Here's the deal. We gotta set ourselves up. See, retirement is the long game. We gotta make moves and make them early. Set up goals. Don't worry about a setback. Just save up and stack up to reach them. Let's put ourselves in the right position. Pre-game to greater things.
Start building your retirement plan at thisispretirement.org. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or injured at work, you have rights, and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer. And we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case. And they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-257-3148. 800-257-3148. 800-257-3148. That's 800-257-3148.
Bouchard back in his own zone now with Ekholm. But Colson, nice pass across. Here's Draisaitl. He scores! Leon Draisaitl's won it in Game 4 for the Oilers, and the series is tied at 2.
Oh, man. How about this? The end of a long shift, a chip into the middle. Draisaitl driving to the net, one hand on his stick right off the pad. And you know Bobrovsky, we've seen him go side to side so effectively. Corey Perry, this is about a 6-second shift that ends up with probably the biggest goal. He's had so many, but the biggest goal of his Oiler career.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise, and right there you heard the overtime game winner from Leon Draisaitl, the second overtime game winner in this Stanley Cup final from Leon Draisaitl, courtesy of Sportsnet Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a treat. Not only is it the repeat of the Stanley Cup Finals last year, which some people from the outside would have been going, oh, boring. No, these two teams have built a rivalry against each other. They're out for blood and competition here because those rats on the Florida Panthers side of things are going up against the skill and the physicality of the Edmonton Oilers, who are searching for Canada's first cup since 1993. And we have, once again, a series tied at 2, thanks to the 2 overtime goals from Leon Draisaitl. One was set up by McDavid. That was the nicer of the 2 in game 1 that we kind of ran down last week on the show. But this one, a little bit of puck luck as it goes off a defenseman's kneecap and redirects in between the wickets of Bobrovsky. But Leon Draisaitl in the post-game press conference, he goes, we'll take those. So obviously the Oilers will take those. They even the series in Florida after a really tough game 3, and they're headed back to Canada, to Edmonton, with this series tied and the home ice advantage, which they didn't have in the Stanley Cup final against these Panthers last year.
Yeah, I don't know if it's up to you or not, or I don't know if you feel this way, but when these games don't go to overtime now, I'm kind of upset.
Yeah, right.
I feel empty.
Right, like it's been 3 out of 4 years, or 3 out of the 4 games, excuse me, that they've gone to overtime. But yeah, Draisaitl became the 3rd player ever to score 2 overtime winners in the Stanley Cup Finals history. He joined Don Bones Raleigh and John LeClaire. So the last time he was done was 1993. He also became the first player in NHL history to have 4 overtime winners in a single postseason. So he officially set the record. Could he go for 5? We'll see. We'll see. And I was mentioning you in between segments here, but he jumped from before game 4, he was plus 1,200 to win the Conn Smythe. After his game winner, he is now plus 240 as I looked yesterday. So he went from the 5th best odds all the way up to the 2nd best odds. So we'll see. They've got momentum. Even Gretzky said on the show, just throw the puck at the net. Good things usually happen. And man, they were left for dead after the first period. They were down 3-0, left for dead. Everything was going Florida's way. And they battled all the way back. Do they get Pickard in that? That's my question. That's like obviously the storyline heading forward is Pickard's 7-0. He is undefeated in the playoffs. He is literally the reason why they are here, because they probably don't get past LA without Pickard.
The only reason he came back out of the net throughout these playoffs and they went back to Skinner was because of the fact that Pickard went down with a little bit of an injury.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he stays healthy, do you ride with the hot hand rather than your actual starter? I mean, the last time we really saw something like this was against the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final, or in the Stanley Cup playoffs in general, when the Vegas Golden Knights went to their 5th string goaltender over current Blackhawk, although he hasn't played a game because, once again, of injury. Laurent Brossoit struggled to stay healthy with the Vegas Golden Knights back then. And then it was, do we go with Aiden Hill or Logan Thompson or somebody else at this? I mean, who's going to just suit up and play in net for those Vegas Golden Knights? But now here with the Oilers, yes, that is a big question going into Game 5, especially going back home. I think if Leon Draisaitl scores one more overtime game winner, listen, I know the Oilers won 3 games in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, but if they get to 3 games and all 3 of their wins are Leon Draisaitl overtime wins, how do you not give that man the Conn Smythe Trophy when they...
Wouldn't he also break that record with that one? If he got another overtime goal?
He'd extend his record that he already has. The 4th one is the one that set it because he was tied with the lead at 3, and then the 4th one put him by himself. So the 5th one, it's kind of like the old... what was record that was just broken with... Anyway, continue. I'm losing my train of thought. There was a record where like the goal, Ovechkin. It's like every goal that Ovechkin scores is like extending his own record. Kind of the same thing here.
Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of watching history regardless. But listen, like I said, I know the Oilers won 3 games last year, so they can't get ahead of themselves. But you got to imagine with 2 out of these remaining 3 games at home, potential 3 games at home, the Oilers, if they get to that 3-win mark, they're going to want to close it out, and it's going to be McDavid putting the team on his back. And you've seen from the behind-the-scenes clip how badly everybody in this Oilers locker room, especially Connor McDavid, the best player in the game, wants it. They're hungry for it, and that is what's keeping them alive in this series against a juggernaut in the Panthers. And I don't just mean juggernaut talent-wise, because we've seen some of the scoring talent from the Kachucks and from the Marchands and from the Sam Bennetts. But I mentioned those 3 guys particularly because they won't just score against you, they will hurt you. Yeah. I mean, listen, Brad Marchand, say what you will about him. I didn't like him as a player when he played in Boston, but he is that guy that if he was on your team, you would love him because he is the agitator. He is that rat. He's the rat king. He runs around. Listen, I don't trust anybody with a bigger nose than me, but I will say I'd trust him if his, if he had his stick on the puck in overtime like he did in game 2, he's closing it out.
And I got big Team of Destiny vibes when Bennett literally hit Pickard's glove and it goes off the crossbar in overtime.
Goodness, yes.
Like, the whole crowd thought it was going in, and I was like, I literally looked at my girlfriend while I was watching. I was like, okay, the Oilers are going to win now. Like, that shot doesn't go in. Like, Team of Destiny, we're about to, and literally, like, 2 minutes later, they score, like, Draisaitl scores that game winner. And Mama Stanley, I don't know if you've seen the lady that is in the moss pit. That she gives big Ted Lasso vibes. Nick, I don't know if you've seen this, but she literally she doesn't say anything. She just holds up the sign that says "Believe." Yeah, and she's dressed head to toe like the Stanley Cup.
She's got like the silver tassels on it.
Yeah,
and everything.
So shout out to Mama Stanley. She gets VIP treatment up there in Edmonton. I really enjoy when they cut to her in the moss pit, and it's just. It's going to be rocking. That Game 5, I mean, it's going to be pivotal. I think winner of Game 5, I think in these situations, I think wins like 75% of the time. It's very similar to like Game 1, right? It's like kind of those percentages plays. But yeah, I think the winner of Game 5 probably wins this series. And the Panthers have been unbelievable on the road in this postseason. So, including Sam Bennett.
Yeah, and it's the same as what I just said for the NBA, is this quickly becomes a best-of-3 series. So this becomes like a Game 1 all over again. And the Edmonton Oilers are going to really want to lean on that home ice advantage going forward in here. Game 5 will be June 14th. That is today, so you can catch that tonight. Then Game 6 will be June 17th. That is Tuesday. And if they need a decisive Game 7, that will be Friday, June 20th. So a little bit of Friday night hockey.
Nick, did you have something to add?
Not exactly, just kind of a side thing. It was just, I was listening to Paul Maurice right after Game 4. He was just basically essentially asked, set it aside, you just like watching these games, but it was basically the paraphrase of the question. He's really enjoying it. He goes, this is the one I got really quick. Everything is dangerous all the time. The mental intensity, the mental toughness of both teams shows. The game's not going to over. The game's not over till it's over. We've had 3 or 4 games going to overtime. These are really two good teams, really evenly matched. So even he realizes everything's even. It's even Steven. It's not going to be over till it's over. So hopefully, being up 3-0 in that game, tying, and then eventually losing, I don't think they're going to be mentally out of it, because Paul Maurice is going to be the guy that gets these guys back into play. So obviously he's there for a reason.
And Paul Maurice has been on record saying he doesn't believe in momentum, whether a good momentum or bad momentum. And he also, after they won Game 3, he became the...
you can't get a read on that guy.
He's a killer, though. But after Game 3, with that victory, he became the 3rd NHL coach in history with over 1,000 wins, regular season and postseason, joining Scotty Bowman and Joe Quenneville. So really good coach in his own right.
Yeah.
He is, definitely a very talented coach. I do think he wins the just coaching battle on the surface, but we'll see if the Edmonton Oilers and Knobloch can beat that coaching mentality. So we shall see. We've got a little bit more hockey, but a lot more local sports coming up for you here right on the Rise. You're listening to AM 1410 WRMN. I'm Mike Napoletano. This is Daulton Cooper, and this is Nick Johnston. We will be talking some fire, some stars, some Cougars, Boomers, Sky, and a couple more hockey notes within the Fox Valley right here on AM 1410.
Is diabetes keeping you from enjoying life's special moments? At US Med, we understand the challenges you face, and we're here to help.
With US Med, I can finally manage my diabetes without it managing me.
US Med offers a wide range of services to simplify your diabetes care. Personalized care plans, convenient access to cutting-edge diabetes tech, and knowledgeable support. Plus, we'll check your insurance so your diabetes care may be covered at little or no cost to you.
With US Med, I feel confident and control of my diabetes. I can finally live my life to the fullest.
Don't let diabetes hold you back. Choose US Med and experience better birthdays, better adventures, better anniversaries, and better everything. Call now. US Med. Better service, better care. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. 800-785-1673. That's 800-785-1673.
Are you dreaming of a getaway? Want to leave the stress of daily life behind? Whether it's a relaxing cruise or an adventurous land escape, planning the perfect vacation doesn't have to be a hassle. At Cruises International, they specialize in vacation destinations, land and sea, making your dreams come true. Located at 1721 Moon Lake Boulevard in Hoffman Estates, Cruises International isn't just about booking travel. They're your personal concierge, trusted travel advisor, and advocate. Your preferences are unique, and they'll take the time to understand exactly what you're looking for. From personalized service to their global network of specialists, they ensure that your vacation is tailor-made just for you. It's time to plan the vacation of a lifetime. Call 800-255-7447. That's 800-255-7447 today and speak to a cruise and vacation expert. Cruises International. It's time to set sail to your dream destination.
When your car is making a strange noise, no matter what it is, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
That's an interesting sound.
It's like your mental health. If you're struggling and feeling overwhelmed, it's important to do something about it. It can be as simple as talking to someone in your community, or just taking a deep, calming breath when you need it. Nice. For mental health resources, check out loveyourmindtoday.org. At loveyourmindtoday.org, you'll find information that may help you get through a tough time. Things like tips for dealing with stress, how to navigate difficulties like financial worries, anger, substance use, and more. You can also find real stories of how people navigated their own mental health challenges. Because once you start to address the problem, you can go so much further. Visit loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
A recent Gallup poll indicated that 38% of Americans are putting off health care because of financial concerns, the highest ever recorded. I'm Dr. Bob Martin, here to serve you every Sunday afternoon from 1 to 4. Millions of Americans are seeking health advice that will not cost an arm and a leg, so I offer health tips and advice absolutely free. Listen to my show, Sunday afternoons from 1 to 4 right here on WRMN, AM 1410 and 96.7 FM, the voice of the Valley.
Looking to set sail on your dream vacation? Cruises International has you covered. Specializing in land and sea getaways, they're here to make your vacation unforgettable. Located at 1721 Moon Lake Boulevard in Hoffman Estates, they offer personalized service with a global network of specialists to ensure your trip is tailor-made just for you. Call today at 800-255-7447 to speak with a cruise and vacation expert. And don't miss Travel Tuesdays on WRMN AM 1410 every first Tuesday of the month from 11 to 12 p.m. on Out to Lunch. That's Cruises International. Your vacation, your way.
Welcome back to AM 1410 WRMN. You're listening to On the Rise. Myself, Mike Napoletano, alongside I almost said Brandon Combs. We don't have Brandon Combs today. Nick Johnston and Daulton Cooper.
You almost did it earlier too.
I'm so used to. Well, I wasn't looking at the screen, and I'm used to having him just up on the zooming in with us. But yeah, the three of us carrying the show here today. A great show thus far. Thank you for chiming in. We got a bunch of listeners in the chat. Hello, Brendan. Thank you for always listening. And Grant Leader was chiming in saying, maybe you keep Skinner on a short leash if you do start him in Game 5. I don't know. I think you go with Pickard.
You have to.
You got to. So we've got a couple more hockey notes here. Ryan Warsofsky, coach of the USA team at the World Championships. He was head coach of the Chicago Wolves when they won the Calder Cup in 2022. He was with the Wolves from 2020 to 2022. I just wanted to make that note because we did talk about those World Championships, but I don't think we mentioned our Wolves side of things, as we usually cover the Wolves on this show. He is now the head coach of the San Jose Sharks after spending 2 years as their assistant. He was also the head coach of the South Carolina Stingrays from 2016 to 2018 before moving up to the assistant coach of the Charlotte Checkers, who are currently in the AHL Calder Cup Finals. He was the assistant coach of Charlotte from 2018 to 2020. They defeated the Chicago Wolves in the Calder Cup Finals in 2019. Of course, there was no Calder Cup playoffs in 2020 or 2021 because of COVID. So just the season before the Wolves would win it all. Then eventually in 2022 was when they won it all. The reason I bring up all this minor league stuff, especially the South Carolina Stingrays, is it connects to the Blackhawks coaching moves that we've seen within the last couple of weeks. Do you know who the head coach of the Charlotte Checkers was at that time when they beat the Wolves in the Calder Cup playoffs? in the Calder Cup finals?
It wasn't Jeff Blashill. I know that. So I've got no other guesses.
It was Mike Vellucci, who just got named to that same Blackhawks roster by Jeff Blashill. Jeff Blashill bringing in Mike Vellucci, but Blashill, of course, has the ties that we talked about in previous shows with minor league teams, AHL wise, and of course NHL wise with the Red Wings. And then he had some time with the Lightning organization. But the Blackhawks did finalize their coaching roster last week by adding Mike Vellucci. Jared Nightingale, we were talking about, was headed to Rockford. He played for the Chicago Wolves and the Charlotte Checkers, who were in the ECHL at the time. So he has ties to both of those organizations. He was the assistant coach in Rockford from 2022 to 2024. And he was the head coach of the South Carolina Stingrays just this last season. So it's all kind of full circle with this Blackhawks coaching staff. But I just wanted to make those notes. And the Blackhawks did make a move just this past week. What was it that you had? Oh, yeah. The Blackhawks have traded the rights to defenseman Victor Soderstrom to the Bruins for 7th-round pick and defenseman prospect Ryan Mast. So a little bit of a minor move for the Blackhawks, but good to see they're starting the ball early on what is expected to be an exciting and very busy offseason. So that'll be good. We have a couple more baseball notes to get to. Of course, we're going to be jumping back into the Chicago Cubs, but we have to talk first about what is going on today and talk about what happened within this last week in the soccer realm of things. The Chicago Fire putting up a touchdown against DC United, a 7-1 victory.
Oh, they even got the extra point.
Yeah, they kicked the extra point. Marin Haile Selassie, Jonathan Bamba, Tom Barlow with a hat trick, Philip Zinkernagel in the 56th minute. So actually, just before half, it was 4-0 Fire. They added on the final 3. The Brian Gutierrez goal was in the 91st minute, the 90th +1 minute. So adding insult to injury as the Fire get the win there. They're now 7-4-5. They do have a game today. I will be in attendance at Soldier Field because it is the doubleheader. The Chicago Fire will be taking on Nashville SC at 7:30 p.m. But before that, it will be the Chicago Stars that take on the Seattle team right before that at 4. That is the Seattle Reign FC. The Stars, they are 1-2-8 with 5 points. They had a game last weekend that it wasn't a loss, but it was a draw, a 2-2 draw against LA. So it's not the loss column. They're struggling to get back there. Of course, coaching changes throughout the season. You lose Mallory Swanson, or Dansby Swanson's wife, she's on maternity leave. Or she's currently pregnant, so you're not going to have her for this season. So we're going to respect her time, but definitely a blow to this Chicago Stars team that I don't think they were expecting. So it's a little bit tougher. But a doubleheader at Soldier Field today should be exciting. I'll be in action for all of that, and I'll bring you the info next week. As far as the future matches go for these teams, next Saturday, the Chicago Stars will be in action on the road against the Portland Thorns FC. That'll be a 9 p.m. kickoff. And then the Chicago Fire, give me 1 second here.
Make sure you check out our socials too. Make sure you're following the socials for all that exclusive content that you'll be providing us too.
That is true. That is true. Hopefully there'll be a little bit more sound bites that we can bring to our show next week. But if you ever miss any of our shows or want to catch some more extended content, that'll be on all the socials as well. The Chicago Fire do have a game on Wednesday as well, so a little bit busier of a week for them. That will be a 7:30 game against the Philadelphia Union. That will also be at Soldier Field. So a couple of home games in a row for the Fire. They're off next weekend, but then they resume Saturday, June 28th against Charlotte FC at 7:30 once again at home. So busy week for soccer starting out with today, but we also have some news around the American Association and the Frontier League with the Boomers and the Cougars. I said that in reverse order, actually, but of course, we'll start with the Cougars. I was in attendance last night for their replica ring giveaway. Of course, the Cougars going 7-0 in the postseason last year in their magical run to take home the Miles Wolff Cup. and they were giving away rings to the first 1,500 fans. I got a chance to put on one of the real rings. Thank you to Claire, who was so welcoming to getting us in the door and getting us interviews with former Tampa Bay Ray and big leaguer and World Series hero Brett Phillips. I got to ask him some questions. That was that interview we were alluding to earlier. Go ahead and check that out on Facebook or Instagram. And then we've also got a chance to talk to a couple different Cougars players, so those interviews will be up there as well. That was Armand Upshaw and Todd Lott. Todd Lott's been having an incredible season. You heard me talk a little bit about him when we had that interview with Colin Rudisil and Connor Klingen, because he's been batting basically 400 this whole season.
Oh, boy.
And then you also had Armand Upshaw, who both of those gentlemen were a part of that 7-0 run last year. So got a chance to ask them a little bit about what they thought going into this season with a little bit slower of a start, but building back up towards that championship pedigree.
Yeah.
So,
and those will be out early next week.
Yes.
On the socials.
Yeah. So your Boomers, though, they had a busy week. They were on the road, but not too far last week when they were facing off against the Windy City Thunderbolts. That was just a Friday and Saturday series. So we left off last Thursday with the Boomers, I believe, having a decent series at home, taking 2 out of 3, but then they were going on the road. We actually had tickets in the office here that we didn't get a chance to use over for if we wanted to go to some of those games. But the Boomers on Friday, as I said, facing off against those Windy City Thunderbolts, they get the 6-3 victory over in Crestwood. And then on Sunday, the Boomers got the shutout, 6-0 victory right there. So decent start to the week for the Boomers. In their last 10 games, they're 7-3. They have a 1-game winning streak. They're 21-10. So playing some amazing baseball on the season, although it was a tough series in Washington. Of course, that was the team that they had to play at the very end of the season last year and didn't get them into the playoffs because of it. So they dropped 2 out of 3, a 12-1 loss followed by a 5-2 victory, and then a 5-4 loss in the conclusion. But coming up, the Boomers will have a series at home this weekend. Actually, they started it last night against Mississippi and got the win 4-0. They will play today at 6:30 and tomorrow at 1 o'clock against the Mississippi Mud Monsters.
I was going to say, Nick, did you know they're called the Mississippi Mud Monsters? That's got to be a great hat.
They got some solid branding.
I was going to say that's got to be a great mascot.
Yeah,
all I can think of was like Grimace from but a mud version.
I feel like we went through. If it wasn't here, it was somewhere else. Definitely that we went through all the amazing just minor league teams like the Yalls. There's just
Yalls. Yeah, they used to be the Florence Freedom, and then they switched to the Yalls, which is crazy. You know, their mascot is
it's just the water tower.
The water tower, yeah, because there's like some famous water tower over there.
Oh, you've never seen it?
No, I went to Florence for when the Boomers won the championship against Florence.
It's like that 70s show, like they really value the water tower up there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, you can't miss it. It's literally the only thing when you drive through 75 and you're driving south. Yeah, that's all you can see.
Oh, boy.
And that is a story for another time when we have time. Maybe 100%. Even for the Instagram, why I was in Florence, Kentucky to watch the Boomers win a championship years before doing anything in media. So that'll be an interesting one, but that's a fun one. The Boomers will be, like I said, at home the next 2 days. So if you have any Father's Day ideas, you can head on over to the 1 o'clock game against the brand new team to the league, the Mississippi Mud Monsters. But then the Boomers go on the road to play Gateway Tuesday through Thursday before heading back to Ozinga Field in Crestwood for another 2-game stint against the Windy City Thunderbolts next Friday and Saturday. Before that one's one of those split series, the Sunday conclusion game is at Wintrust at 1 o'clock. Next Sunday on Grant Leader's birthday. So you can be watching and listening to the Boomers while he's either crying or celebrating. Is he going to, as we were saying during the break, is he going to blow out his candles when the Thunder win Game 7, or is he going to Tyrese Halliburton choke on the blowing out the candles? I don't know. We will see.
People are asking.
I'm rooting for you, Grant, I guess, just because you're my friend. Other than that, it doesn't extend any further than that. I'm a Bulls fan through and through. But on the Cougars side of things, as we mentioned, they were having a little bit of an up and down week. So we'll get back to some Cougars news and post some of that content. You can head to the Instagram to see that. But the Sky, you were in attendance. I do want to get to some of this.
Oh, yeah.
You and Blake did a phenomenal job. I was, of course, at that convention that we talked about last weekend. And I will say, I did a hot sauce challenge. I died. But I survived.
I was going to say, we're glad to see you here. That's amazing.
I had the meta glasses on, so I was streaming it. As soon as I took the glasses off, everybody's looking at me. Not to be gross, but snot running down my nose, tears all throughout my eyes. It was that hot. It was brutal. And they're looking at me. They didn't have any milk, too, by the way.
Oh, boy.
But then at the same time, as that's happening, they're like, Mike, how are you here in Rosemont, but you're also at the United Center covering Fever and Sky? Are there two of you? And I was like, nope. The boys got me. So you guys were tagging me in a bunch of posts. What was that experience like, and how was the game?
Sorry, food shouldn't hurt.
It shouldn't. It shouldn't.
Just want to throw that in there before you get to that.
How do you have a challenge with no milk? Anyway,
Right?
we'll save that for now. I guess that's the haunted convention for you. I don't know. Maybe they weren't thinking that far ahead, but that's okay.
They were trying to scare us.
No, that was great. It was the first ever WNBA game at the United Center. It was pretty packed. It was pretty ruckus. A lot of Fever fans. They were pretty excited, even without Caitlin Clark playing in the game. The game itself obviously wasn't the result we were looking for. Unfortunately, Vandersloot goes down pretty early in that game with a season-ending knee injury, which came out later. So the growth button is going to get hit really quick on this team. Rebecca Allen's going to be more of a big-time player. You still got Haley Van Lith, and she's definitely going to get some more playing time, even though she only got 4 minutes, I think, last night. But yeah, it was a great experience. Shout out to the Sky and everybody involved at the United Center. It was a really well-run, event. Everything was great. Promotion of women's sports and everything in between. But yeah, it was great. We got to do some handshaking, which was always fun, and got to meet I got to meet the guy that runs Angel Reese's podcast, and he was a really nice guy.
Okay.
And just everything else in between. The biggest thing with the Sky that I noticed from a team play perspective is their pace of play is a little bit of question, and I guess I mean that more from the offensive standpoint, where they play kind of slower. So they have the two bigs, they got Reese and Cordoso.
Mm-hmm.
And they sometimes have a hard time getting back on defense, just because where they get stuck in the paint and then the transition gets out on the fast break for the other team really quickly, and it just really puts them in a precarious situation, that they really have a hard time. Anybody would have, honestly, a hard time guarding, regardless of the skill level. But we'll see. Like I said, Vandersloot going down is going to be a really big blow for this team, because she's obviously the veteran presence, the championship pedigree that she was brought in to kind of, help the youngins grow along. And we'll see what happens. And like I said, I think it'd be a good thing in retrospect just to see, everybody get a little more experience a little bit quicker. I think it'll have its due diligence. But overall, the event was great. You can check out our social medias. We got some great pictures. Blake had some good videos as well on his social medias, so feel free to check that out. And I think the Sky will be in action, I believe, on Tuesday night, and hopefully we'll be in attendance as well.
Yes, yeah. So they do have one game in between that. They'll be out in Connecticut to face the Sun at 11 a.m. That's tomorrow on CBS, and then it'll be back home for the Sky on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yep.
Next Saturday at noon, right after The Truth About Chicago Sports and another edition of On the Rise. It'll be on ABC and ESPN Plus, where the Sky take on the Phoenix Mercury. But going through the rest of this week, of course, Tuesday they're on the road to face the defending champs, who they opened their home season against this year, and I was in attendance for that one. This was another loss to the New York Liberty, an 85-66 final, and then just last night, an 88-70 finish in Atlanta against the Dreams. So the Sky now 2-7, sitting fifth in the Eastern Conference. The other thing that I wanted to make mention of is Vandersloot going down with the injury. It kind of sucks because they just announced that they are going to retire Allie Quigley, her wife's number 14 jersey, on July 9th here in Chicago. So, she'll be, of course, still in attendance for that, but not playing in that game as well. So
yeah,
a little bit of a blow. But one more time, you and Blake absolutely killing it out there. Phenomenal content. You guys were man on the scene. And hey, if we have connections to the guy who runs Angel Reese's podcast, maybe we'll be talking to him shortly, or anybody from the team as well. But you guys, thank you for stepping up for the department, and you guys were rocking it out there.
Yeah, the Sky got Ryan Howard last night too. I would be remiss if we didn't recognize her. She had 36 points, but she tied the WNBA record with 9 3-pointers last night. So
that's crazy. Yeah, you were saying that there
incredible.
Was a Sky lead going into the late stages of that game, and yet unfortunately
the third quarter is just make or break for this team. It's usually when the wheels fall off. Unfortunately, is just, I don't know if they just struggle with halftime adjustments, or if the other teams make adjustments to what they're doing, and they don't adjust as quickly as they need to. I don't know, but just the third quarter seems to be a bugaboo quarter this year for the Sky.
Yeah, that's a little bit rough, but a team that has not been bad in late stages has been the Chicago Cubs. We'll transition into our last topic as we've kind of pushed the Cubs to the back burner here a little bit. But we last left off with the Cubs going up against the Detroit Tigers, those red-hot Tigers that the White Sox split with in a 4-game series. But it was that marquee weekend matchup between the Cubs and the Tigers. Of course, we mentioned it last episode, Javi Baez and Tarek Skubal, and just the fact that both teams are doing really well this year. The Detroit Tigers got the last laugh in this series. They won the first game 3-1 on Friday night. The Cubs come back with a 6-1 victory on Saturday, so the rubber match would determine who comes home with bragging rights, and unfortunately, Chicago falls short to Detroit, a 4-0 victory for the Tigers, and then the Cubs continue out east to play Philadelphia. But before I get into that series, your thoughts on that Chicago Cubs-Detroit Tigers series? The ticket prices you were mentioning last episode were insane.
Astronomical. It was a sellout crowd, which Tarek Skubal did a hit on Pardon My Take, and he was talking about that and how like the vibes were really high in Detroit, and that's really cool. But my biggest takeaway was Ben Brown. He pitched really well on Friday night. He's had first inning troubles, as it's been on record, and they gave him the start. I believe it was Friday night against Skubal.
Yeah.
He went basically pitch for pitch with Skubal, which is really what the Cubs need right now. So if they can get him rolling in that direction, I think that's only going to help them moving forward. But I mean, every game was competitive. I think it was like 3-1, I think was the first game. And then obviously the last game was like 4-0, which I think Happ got thrown out at the plate in game 3. That could have maybe turned the tides a little bit. But overall, it's a competitive series. I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, the Cubs they're 21-16 on the road. They have the most away wins in the National League. So, I mean, they play well at home. They play well on the road. It's just, you come up against a good team and you can't win them all. So I think it was the first time in like 8 series that they hadn't won the series. So they've been incredible. They've been doing all right.
Yeah, you mentioned Ben Brown going pitch for pitch with Tarek Skubal. 7.2 innings pitched, 7 2/3 for Skubal, 7 for Ben Brown. Skubal had 8 hits given up. Ben Brown 7. 2 earned runs from Brown, 1 from Skubal. 6 strikeouts from Skubal, 7 from Ben Brown. So these are very similar numbers. Ben Brown had a walk. That's the only thing that Skubal didn't have on his resume that night. But I mean, a very nice. When you're going up against a guy poised to win a Cy Young, I mean,
a back-to-back,
back-to-back Cy Young. I mean, that you're gonna have some struggles on the offensive side of things. You probably won't get the run support like that was the case there. So the Cubs did get a little bit more run support against the Philadelphia Phillies, and they were trying to take advantage of a Bryce Harper-less Phillies team, but then Bryce Harper did come back in the series late off of injury, but the Cubs still dropped 2 out of 3. So again, another loss series for this Cubs team that's not used to that. The first game went to 11 innings. That was a 4-3 loss, an 8-4 victory for the Phillies in game 2, and then a 7-2 loss on Wednesday. And then the Cubs going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates as of right now, a 4-game series at home before they face off against another division rival in the Milwaukee Brewers next week before we get into the future games. A win over Pittsburgh on Thursday, 3-2, and a loss in 10 innings last night, a 2-1 nail-biter that the Cubs just dropped right there. But then 120 starts today and tomorrow against Pittsburgh. Our very own Blake Cowell said he will be in attendance, I believe, today.
Yep.
So that'll be good. We'll get some insight from him on Truth About Chicago Sports coming into next week. But then the Milwaukee series, 7:05 on Tuesday and Wednesday, 120 for the conclusion on Thursday, and then 120 starts at home. This is a long homestand for the Cubs. Next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all 120 starts. The first game, Friday night, is on MLB Network against the Seattle Mariners. So Cubs baseball is about all the city has right now.
It seems like it. Is it the memes? Is it the loud minority online that or is it actually truth? Do the Cubs really struggle with these above 500 teams as much as everyone says they do? I mean, it seems to be the case. Exactly like I said, when Phillies were without Bryce Harper for a couple of days and still just really couldn't piece it together. So again, is it?
According to our resident Cubs homer who isn't here, every time I bring this up too, all he talks about was like, oh, well, they played well against the NL West and everything else in between, which was literally the first month of the season. So I don't know. Their offense does seem to be up and down. So, and that's kind of the nature of the game. I think we would all agree to that. But to your point, I don't know if they have the pitching staff, Nick, to deal with these above 500 teams, to your point.
And that was also the big question too, like, trade deadline eventually coming up, the question of are Cubs going to be buyers, sellers, are they going to do anything like that? I think the biggest question should be is like, if they're going to make a move, can you rely on this arm in the playoff? Are you going to give the ball game 1, game 2, game 3 to, I don't know, Boyd at this point? It's kind of tough. I mean, Colin Reyes having the best year. I mean, you're not giving Ben Brown the ball at game 3. You're like, all right, here you go. Right. Here's the game. I wouldn't do that in the slightest chance.
And even with your top pitchers, I mean, a rotation gets narrowed come postseason time. Like, can these guys go back to back that many days, right? Or within a 3-day stint or 4-day stint. So that's going to be a little bit tougher. But you talk about what Brandon always says, oh, they did well against the West. And like you said, that was earlier on in the season. And, it's a long season. So, I mean, can the Cubs keep this up? You would pose the question to them, are they peaking too early? Is the gas going to run out eventually? And
don't worry. Chris Sales apparently is going to be a Cub in the next, I don't know. If you talk to any Cub fan, he's going to be a Cub within the next half hour.
And I'm still on the train of like maybe still debating on trading Kyle Tucker before the deadline if you can't get an extension done. And the more I think about it too, with the whole CBA agreement coming up, a lot of people are on the fence if we're even going to have a season. I think it's 27 and 28 just because of that. So,
which is the year that the Cubs would be hosting the All-Star game.
Yeah. So I do understand going all in, but we'll see. And I think if you can't get a deal done with Tucker before the trade deadline, you have to trade him because you gave away a high piece in the organization to get him.
Yeah, no doubt. So. That'll wrap it up here for us on AM 1410's On the Rise, but stick around because from 10 to noon, it'll be the truth about Chicago sports, followed by Chief Guard of the Republic. We've covered pretty much everything for you. Yep. We'll be back with, of course, all of that content on social media, a little bit more Kane County Cougars news going into the next week, because that's really, I guess, the only other team other than the Boomers that the Chicagoland has going for them these days. So.
And again, not this week, but next week, 6 p.m. starting on Saturdays, blow the whistle, live right here Saturdays. Come join the crew.
And happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We got the U.S. Open. I know Mike mentioned earlier we don't have any sports. We have the U.S. Open, which is a great time to take a nap on Sunday. So
best time.
That is true. You're listening to AM 1410 WRMN. I'm Mike Napoletano. This is Daulton Cooper. For Nick Johnston, thank you for tuning in. AM 1410 On the Rise.
If your idea of therapy involves a fishing rod, a tree stand, or a campfire, then you need American Outdoors Radio. Host John Cruz speaks your language, whether it's about the best lures, tracking game,